Actually, it remind me of this, you remind me of those, but I think it would remind me of. What's your sign? My sign, yeah. Okay. That's just.
Three. Yep. Okay, Rabbi, we're about to begin. So please put your phones on mute. Very good Erev Shabbat and a good Chodesh. The remarkable weeks that we have gone through, to a certain extent, don't allow us to view what happened. Because when you live through things, you very rarely are able to see them in perspective. There's no question that it's one of the great revelations of heaven for the protection of the Jewish people. And it says in Tehillim, B'shuv Hashem, the Shiva Seal, when great things happen, we are dreamers. What does it mean, dreamers? Well, part of a dream is that we do not know what is reality and what we imagine. Chazal therefore said that every dream has in it elements that are not real, that are simply imagination, but that every dream has in it reality as well. So it's hard for us to sort out what is the reality and what is the imagination. But there's no doubt that great things have happened and that we have been delivered from an unspeakable tragedy. Now, what is perspective? Well, part of perspective is to see that events that occurred years ago that are seemingly unrelated to the events of now, nevertheless, those events are the ones that created the situation that we're in. So we see this, I'm gonna go over the past weeks, that Moshe Rabbeinu somehow is anticipated the Atzas Meraglim. That the Jewish people won't want to go to Eretz Yisrael. He took the risk that they would agree anyway, but it didn't work out. That's why he had to change the name of Yoshua from Hosea to call Yoshiach Atzas Meraglim. The Hashem will help you that you will not fall into the trap of the Meraglim. So there's a perspective here that Moshe knows from the beginning. He's aware of the danger. Now, if we look at it on the surface, why should the Jewish people have refused to go to Eretz Yisrael? They've just been delivered from the slavery of Egypt. They're in the middle of a desert. There's no permanence there. And they are able to enter a land of milk and honey. Why should they say no? But Moshe Rabbeinu is aware that deep down in the heart of the people, they are not in favor of going to Eretz Yisrael. They're more contented to remain as servants in Egypt, because in Egypt they had benefits. So they have no sense of perspective. Moshe took the chance that they would have that sense, and he was proven wrong. In this week's Parsha, the Torah tells us Korach ben Yitzhor ben Kos ben Levi. So Rashi immediately points out to us that it doesn't say ben Yaakov, because Yaakov Avinu said, I don't want to have a part of this. So the story of Korach begins with Yaakov, not with Korach. Yaakov already realizes that there is within his children this nature that would eventually bring about the rebellion against Moshe. So the story has perspective to it. Because Yaakov Avinu already saw the story of Yosef. He already saw how within the Jewish people and he doesn't want to be associated with it. I thought that when the American general described the development of the bombs that were used to destroy the Iranian reactors. So it said 15 years ago. So 15 years ago, nobody foresaw that they would have to bomb. 15 years ago, the Iranian nuclear threat was present, but it wasn't immediate. So 15 years ago, if you go back and look at the Israeli society of that time, so they're busy with all of the things that we're busy with. The Haredim, the draft, the taxes, the scandals. None of the news reports then said that the United States is developing this super weapon that eventually can save the state of Israel. Because we do not have that kind of perspective. But all the Jewish history is built on this perspective. It's what Mordechai told us to. Did you ever stop to think why you became the queen? So there are 100 million reasons why he chose you. But that's not the reason. The reason is that you're going to have in your power the ability to save the Jewish people from destruction. But when she becomes the queen, no one realizes that. In fact, the Jewish people are engaged in a celebratory banquet. They feel themselves to be assuredly Persian, and that nothing's going to happen to them. And all of that is because we don't have the perspective. I often heard a lecture from Rabbi Soloveitchik. I think the lecture was in 1949 or 1950. And he usually did not comment on current events. And but he posited then that the only reason that the United Nations was created and existed, and heaven used it as an instrument, was in order that the Jewish state should come into existence. And once it fulfilled that role, it's completely irrelevant, as we see it to be. It has no purpose whatsoever. So the perspective teaches us that it was formed so that it could recognize the state of Israel. Once having done so, then it belongs in the trash heap of history. So that's an idea of perspective. So here we had a perspective of 15 years developing a bomb. Were he ever going to use the bomb? Does the bomb really work? When the United States created the atom bomb at the end of World War II. So the question naturally arose whether or not to use it. If you use it, then you kill 60,000 people with one bomb. If you have two bombs, you ought to kill 120,000 people. So a great many of the leaders in the United States advised Truman not to use the bomb. In fact, the people who developed the bomb, Oppenheimer and the other Jewish physicists, all said they regretted making the bomb. Should never have used it. But he used it. And the war ended. And in all of his interviews after his years of being president, he said he never regretted it. Because it saved millions of lives and shortened the most destructive war in human history. So that's one perspective. But without that perspective, it looks like an act of wanton murder. It's a war crime. You're not allowed to do that. So the Torah wanted us to be aware of this issue of perspective. So Korach is a question of perspective. His rebellion against Moshe has populist elements to it. A lot of what he says is true. Moshe is the leader, Aaron is the Kohen. His tribe are the Levim. And the Jewish people are susceptible to that. Because we operate without perspective. We operate on the question of immediacy. What's now? And if you operate on that, then you're operating not on reality, but on your own spin, so to speak, about your own view of the matter, which may or may not be correct. But Moshe says to them, you're wrong. The issue you're standing on is incorrect. I have not taken anything from any of you. There's no corruption here. There's no personal ambition. You're wrong. Now Moshe is saying to them, have a sense of perspective. look at where I came from. I'm from Midian. I'm safe. I'm the one that took you out of Egypt. I'm the one that brought you the Torah. How can it be that you rebel against me? What have I done to you? And the answer is that without that sense of perspective, you can accuse Moshe of everything. The Medrash says that Moshe, if he looked good that day, so they said, yeah, sure he looks good because he's living off of our trough. And if he didn't look good, they said, oh, he must have had a fight with his wife. But Moshe asked them to look at it in perspective. And that's why Moshe is so stubborn, let us say, on this issue, which he was not so stubborn on all the other issues. And in fact, he does not even pray that the wicked should be spared, as he does with all of the other rebellions. Because Moshe realizes that if they cannot view his leadership in perspective, if they cannot view what has happened to them over the past years since they left Egypt in perspective, they're never going to get it. Never going to really understand what the Torah wants from them. So there are many issues today in Jewish life that are contentious because we are a strong people. And the last few weeks have shown how strong we are. I'm talking about strong within. So we have diverse opinions. But unless we see it in perspective, then we are depressed. We think that there is no better hope, no better future. What has happened to the Jewish people for the past 2 centuries, the good and the better, is a process. The process is ups and downs, moments of triumph and moments of tragedy. But if it's not viewed as a process, it's viewed as every event being an individual occurrence, so to speak. So then we are left in confusion and perhaps even in pessimism. You hear the voices already. They're going to rebuild it. We're going to have to do it again in a few years. Why should we say that? Because of the fact that we view it as an individual event, a one-off, not part of a process. the return of the Jewish people to the land of Israel, and the restoration of Jewish sovereignty in the land of Israel has been a process that has started almost 300 years ago and continues day by day. And again, the process has ups and downs, has achievements and failures. But viewing it in the perspective of a process allows us to appreciate what really is happening. And if you look back the 300 years since the 18th century, when the Sephardim and the Ashkenazim started to return to Eretz Israel. So this is the most wondrous story in the history of human civilization. It has no equal. Never happened before. No one else has ever attempted it. So you have to have the sense that we live within the process, that great things are happening, even if I am not equipped to recognize it. And that what is going on now, we will be able 15 years from now to say, wow, look how important that was. But today it's only a blip on the screen. We say that in davening, on Rosh Hashanah, Absofe Kol Anistoros. The Rebbeinu Shalom has a viewpoint, a perspective, that everything that's hidden is not hidden. Everything fits into a heavenly pattern, into a divine puzzle. So you can go back to 300 years and take countless events, each one individually meant very little in historical terms. But if you view it overall as a process, then you have here this great story that has been unequaled in human history. So we lived through such a time. It's hard for us. Because we don't have the gift of Atzofe Kol Anistoros, of being seen, of seeing what is hidden. To us, everything is hidden. And it's confused by the fact that we have so many experts that tell us what is happening or what will happen. If you play back all of the expert advice on Israeli media just 10 days ago, and you realize that none of it has any value. So one would think that that would be a humbling experience. But we are never humbled when we are wrong. We think somehow that we are right, that only other factors somehow affected what happened. A great deal of patience is involved And we say it in Tehillim, Arboim Shon Halkut Bedor. 40 years I was within that generation. Ve'hem lo yadu jochoi. And they didn't get it. 40 years I'm telling them that. So it's hubris for us to think that we understand what's going on. But on the other hand, patterns emerge. 300 years are not for naught. When you look at it, you have to say, wow, look at what hasn't happened, what has happened here, and what is happening. So the Lord should continue to protect us, and we should be able to be silent. And that is really the ultimate blessing that can be bestowed upon us. Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and thank you. This is the